Hello again. This is part 2 of chapter 1. I'm going to try to go a little faster. Again, new at this, but I think we're doing okay. We were talking about the 5 R's, so I think we got through 4 of them. Reuse, recycle, reduce how much you use, refuse. Do you really need another phone, even though your phone works just as well? Just because there's an update, do you need to get a new one? And the final one, hopefully you thought of, well, actually, I think I talked about this one already, repurpose. So red Solo cup is where I left off, talking about usually you might use this to drink a beverage, and then maybe when you're done with it, you could use it for something else. So you're repurposing it, and I use red Solo cups to hold my little stick switch you all know and love. Alright, so I want you as an output to also come up with another non-renewable resource. Come up with another example. You can't use coal, you can't use oil, but something that is fixed in our Earth's crust that we can't get more of. So that is another output. And just recycling, cute little kid from Kathmandu, Nepal. He collects and sells beer bottles. Growing up, that's how not beer bottles, but I made a lot of money recycling aluminum cans, and you can still do that. Okay, next concept. So this unit again goes over kind of a broad overview of the entire class. Economic growth. In order to experience economic growth, a country has to increase the amount of services they provide or the amount of products that they're producing and selling. So how do we measure a country's value is through the gross domestic product, and that is a measure of the goods or the jobs, the services that that country provides either to its own people or internationally. What I want you to do is look at these two definitions. You have a per capita GDP and then just the GDP, and I want you to come up with what is the difference between those two. And so really you're looking at what is the definition of per capita, and we will be using that word, that term a lot in this class. So per capita, how is it different than overall GDP? And your key is per person. So how much money is our country producing per person? That's going to be a different value than just the general GDP. It's still going to show the same trend. In order for a country to experience economic growth, they've got to either increase the amount of products that they're making or the services they're providing, or their population has to grow so that they have to provide more for each one of those people. And you can see why that would be a detriment to the environment. All right, next up. Okay, learning about 2 different types of countries can be classified 2 different ways, and you have your developed countries, which think of like your rich countries, think of us, think of Japan, most of Europe, and then you have your developing countries, your less developed countries, your poor countries. And I want you to look at this graph, and I want you to grab which 2 differences surprise you the most. So red is developed countries, so this is us, red is rich. And yellow are your developing countries. Those are your poor countries. So it's comparing these 2. And so if you look at population, we have rich has 18% of the population, whereas the poor country is 82%. Population growth, you can see that's happening way more in the poor countries. Difference in wealth and income, I think, is pretty an obvious one. Resource use, rich countries are using 88% of all the world's resources. And yet only taking up 18% of the entire population. And then pollution and waste, we are producing 75% of all the world's pollution compared to 25% with the poorer countries. So I just want you to grab 2 those differences that surprise you the most. And you're going to see this map a lot during this class, and it's going to be talking about different aspects, but it seems like the color trends are always going to look the same to you. So this one's just looking at income, but if I was to ask you where are the most babies being born per woman, the TFR, total fertility rate, you would see the same trend. You would see, Nigerian women having 9 babies per woman on average, versus the United States only having maybe 2. Typical trend. Okay, shifting gears. Again, an overview. Pollution. You can categorize pollution in a whole lot of ways. So we're going to start out with the most general way. Do I know where that pollution is coming from? Can I point to it? And that is a point source type of pollution, like a smokestack. And then you have non-point source, like the air is really dirty. And actually, right now we look outside and we happen to have forest fires burning, and we know where those fires are right now. Well, we know where the main one is, but apparently there are some other ones that we're really not necessarily sure of. Or on a cold winter day where it looks just kind of gross in downtown Reno, where is that pollution coming from? If we're not super sure, is it coming from just one vehicle, or is it coming from an inversion? If you're not sure, it's a non-point. Biodegradable means it will break down over time. Non-degradable, there's no getting rid of it. Once it's in the environment, you cannot break it down. So example of point source, boom, I know exactly where that is coming from. Example of non-point source, where did all that come from? And who knows, an ocean current could have brought some of that in. That's actually a big problem in Australia. They have like a lot of plastic on their beaches that they didn't put there. It's coming in on the ocean currents. So if you're not really sure, that's non-point. I wanted to show you guys something really quick. You are working on your interactive notes. Remember, I did update these a little bit from the first one. I included the video clips that I'll be showing. Hopefully I'll be showing them in class, but if not, if you click on, these are links, and they'll take you to little clips, and I've asked the questions that I want you to answer in your interactive notes. Remembering that your interactive notes are basically you getting points for taking really good notes and answering all these outputs that I'm asking you. So I'm going to have you go to a water pollution clip. Don't listen to the volume, it's really annoying, but just look for the different types of non-point source pollution, and I want you to write down 3 to 5 examples that they give in that. All right, back to, okay, so thinking about when we go to try to get rid of the pollution problem, what is better to do? Is it better to spend your money on cleaning it up, which is output control? So it's already gone through the system, it's an output, and now I have to get rid of it. Or do we try to prevent it from ever getting into the system, prevent that pollution from ever happening? Which one is going to be more cost effective? Which one is going to be more energy efficient? And hopefully, of course, that's a no-brainer. It's always better to prevent than to have to go back and clean it up later. We did an entire activity, hopefully, on Tragedy of the Commons, and then you have a clip in the interactive notes that you are going to watch. Garrett Hardin, who coined the term back in the 1990s, is the interview, and I want you to discuss all of the ways that he talks about, not just looking at these, he really gets into it, discuss the ways to prevent, what are the solutions to a tragedy of the commons? What do we have to do in order for us to not overexploit free open access commons, whether they're your air, your land, your oceans? How do we prevent that from happening? Next concept is ecological footprint. Again, another activity we're going to be doing in classes. We're going to be looking at your ecological footprint. For some reason, this definition tends to stump kids on the test. So you got to think about the amount of land that and water that you need, that your people needs, to produce all of your resources, all of your food, all of your supplies, and also be able to absorb all of the waste that you're going to make. It's got to be able to do that. So what is your footprint? And you guys calculated, what you calculated was how many Earths it would take if everybody lived the way that you live. And thankfully, not everybody lives the way that we do. So right now, this is how we are living. So we are definitely, as a population, living beyond our means. So how is it then how can we do that? Because we only have one planet, and really the answer to that is technology. So we learn how to do more with less. I mean, just one little example of that, you look at a water bottle, a disposable water bottle, which you shouldn't be using, but you look at the materials that it's made out of. now compared to 5 years ago. Now it's like really super thin and super lightweight compared to they're using less materials and recyclable materials. So we're getting smarter with what we have. We're problem solvers. But there we go. Comparing ecological footprint. This is looking at hectares. A hectare is about 2.5 acres. We tend to measure things in acres in the United States, not the metric system. But you can see United States is number 1 in total footprint. So we definitely use the most land to produce the most stuff, and we make a lot of waste, more than anybody else. And then looking at this, that per capita, that per person. So this is 9.7 hectares. And again, that's about 2.5 acres. So when you do the little head math, you're looking at about 24 acres, 25 acres that you use as an average American citizen versus China only using 4 acres per person. So we definitely are living high on the hog. Here we go. This just kind of shows these are people from the Himalayas. They live right at the base. You think Mount Everest, for instance, and they're pulling all their belongings out, and this is what they have. And then you compare it to, typical American family. Boy, this is definitely from the 90s because I have some of that same furniture. This can't be all of their belongings, but it just goes to show that we have a lot more stuff than, other people in the world. Okay, you need to write down this formula. I is equal to P times A times T, and what those stand for. So I is impact. Your environmental impact is equal to the population times affluence times technology. So when you think of what is affluence, that one might stump you. Think money. So if you are affluent, you're very wealthy. So this is showing a relationship. I'm never going to give you numbers to pop into this formula, but it's just showing how they are related, just like 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. And if you increase that 2 to 3, then you're going to increase that 4 to 5. So basically, if you increase the population of a country, you're going to increase the environmental impact. If you increase the consumption, meaning the affluence, how much money they're spending, you're going to increase the overall environmental impact. Technology can work both ways. So this is kind of showing, this picture is showing 2 ways in which technology can increase your impact. So if you're driving a massive SUV, then yeah, you're increasing your impact. But if you're using that technology for maybe a renewable energy source like the windmills that are showing, that's decreasing your impact. So that's a good thing. So for your output, what I need you to do is give me another example of a positive way in which technology will decrease your impact. So come up with another way. You can't use windmills, but how else has better use of technology decreased our environmental impact? And then give me another downer, another use of technology which has increased our impact. So I mentioned the water bottles before. Can't use that one, but no, it's not good to have the water bottles, but at least we are decreasing our impact by using less materials to make them. Okay. Tipping points, another concept. So think about it. If I am holding you, we're standing on the edge of a cliff and you're hanging onto a rope, and I'm on the steady side and you're like rappelling off of this side and you are depending on me to hang on to you. And then I let go. Why would I do that? If I let go of that rope, Superman's not going to come in and swoop you off your feet and bring you back up on top of that cliff. You have gone over the tipping point, and that is shown here. So you get that ball, you push it too far, you can't come back up to the top of that mountain. And so we are facing some ecological tipping points to the point where we're going to go to the point that we can't reverse. We can't fix it. And so those major things that we are coming up on, of course, is long-term climate change. We're getting there, and then it's going to hit a tipping point where it's a runaway effect. And if we figure things out way over here, it's going to be too late. We can't fix them and go back to where we were. The collapse of the fish populations from overfishing that is going on, and then species extinction. Species are going extinct 1,000 times faster than the normal background extinction rate. And once a species is gone, you don't get it back. On this one, I just kind of wanted to quiz you on this one. So if we've been around, Homo sapiens, for about 200,000 years, and we're talking about how long life has been around, 3.5 billion years, what is the age of the Earth? I know that's on your first test, that question. So I always go around and quiz and ask who your biology teacher was to see if they did a good job of teaching you how old is the Earth. And of course, all the biology teachers are amazing, and you're amazing students, so you know it is 4.5 billion years old. So definitely put that into your brain. I promise you it's on the test. Okay, so we have to think about culture and how that might affect ecological footprints. So, what are your beliefs? Like, for instance, some religions believe in having lots of children. There have been, through history, 3 major cultural events. I want you to maybe come up with like a little stick figure for each so you can memorize the 3. I'm going to try to stump you and give you a 4th and a 5th one that sound legitimate, but they're not. So the first one is the agricultural. We went from hunter-gatherers to actually growing our own food. Second one, industrial medical revolution. So better medicine, better machinery, and then right now we are in the information globalization revolution. You can whip out your phone and look stuff up for me. It's your little mini computer. It's crazy. And then the question is, are we reaching it? This is not an actual revolution yet, but that's an idea. Maybe that's what the next one's going to have to be. So showing as world population has changed, this is us starting out farming. So again, you're drawing a little picture for me of the agricultural revolution. Then you have the industrial medical revolution, which is awesome to create that medicine. Downside is it also created tons of pollution and waste, but we still have some issues for sure, but we figured out some of the things with pollution. We're doing better there. Okay. There are 4 main causes of environmental problems. These are just like 4 big ideas. What I want you to do is look at all 4 of them and choose which one do you think has the greatest effect on our environment. Is it an increasing population? Is it that we're using resources, we're just being wasteful? Is it poverty? I mean, we have 1 out of 5 people in the world living in poverty. Or is it a failure to include the environmental costs in goods and services? So I'll go into that one a little bit more, but we might sell this big massive truck, but we don't include in the price of the truck the damage that truck might do to our environment. And so some people think that maybe we should, if we jacked up the price, maybe people would be smart about what they buy and not want to buy that. So you just choose one and write that down. All right, the typical J curve of human population growth. You'll see this over and over again this year. We are definitely way over this little projection here, but you are seeing, that's kind of scary, the Black Plague, but you are seeing that a predicted leveling off is going to happen. That is good news, and I got a feeling that there's a lot of people that don't realize that the population is not going to just keep growing and growing and growing. And we'll learn more about that, but there is a reason why it is leveling off, and it will level off. So this is your J curve, exponential growth, when it goes whoop straight up like that. But hopefully it'll start to stabilize into what's called an S curve, so it looks more like an S. So you need to know the difference between that J curve and the S curve. And then I also need you to look up what is the current population of the top 3 populous countries. You need to have an idea of what that is. So me doing you a favor, I was looking up pictures of trucks for you on the PowerPoint too, but here is a world population clock. So boom, 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 look how fast those babies are getting born. And then here in the United States, we're a little slower growing, But you can see we have about 330 million people, so write that one down. And then, but we're number 3. We are not number 1, thank goodness. In the number 1 spot still is China at 1.39 billion people. And then in the number 2 spot, but catching up really quickly, India is about to surpass China. It is coming soon. So they're at 1.33 basically billion. So they're in the billions and we're still in the millions. So that just gives you an idea of how much bigger they are. Please write those down. You do need to have an idea. It doesn't have to be like the 1.39, but you need to have that 1.3 memorized, that 330 memorized. And then you also need to know the world population of, 7.6, 7.7, 7.8 billion. Just right in there. That will definitely change, but have an idea of what the overall world population is. It changes every year that I teach this, so it's kind of fun. All right. Next, I did mention impact and how affluence has an environmental impact. So think about it, how you have more money and you spend more money on more stuff. Yeah, that could have a harmful impact. I want you to write down, how would that have a positive impact? If we have more money to spend, why might that be a good thing? Now, she's definitely not showing a good thing, and she's showing a lot of resource use and pollution. But if you have money, that also means you have money to do something that could solve and remediate a lot of problems, and that is better education. If we can educate the population on these issues and what it is that they can do to improve things, that is money right there. That will decrease population growth. That will improve your health care. So sometimes having money is a good thing. I did mention poverty being one of the major causes of environmental degradation. 1 out of 5 are living in poverty. So why is that bad? Okay, this kid is not really worried about saving the planet. He's worried about feeding his family. So this is in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The Olympics were there in the last Olympics. We've been watching reruns. And they definitely filtered out this and did not show it on TV. They weren't allowed to. So that was kind of interesting. But so, for instance, they're going to cut down rainforests and use that for agriculture to grow cash crops and not think about why those trees were so important. They're going to burn some of those those old computers and try to get some of the metals out so that they can get money for those. They're just worried about survival and living in poverty. They're more likely to have more kids, so more people. So you can see that that's going to have more of an impact. And then, of course, on their health, not having the sanitation, safe drinking water. Another thing we mentioned was not including the harmful costs in the original cost. So I found a fancy picture of a big truck. And so I'm sure that that's going to give off probably more emissions, use more fuel, do more damage to roads. Should we include that cost? Sometimes that contributes to environmental problems. Another thing that might contribute to environmental problems is companies that receive tax breaks and subsidies that might be harmful to the environment, for instance. So this is where, sometimes the economy and environmental policy get along. Like, for instance, okay, you think about Tesla, bringing Tesla here, which is definitely a great energy source, boosted our economy. So that was a good thing. That worked well. How did we get Tesla here? How did we get them to come to Reno, Nevada? Well, outside of Reno. But we basically gave them some tax breaks, some business tax breaks to make it cheap for them to come here and bring their company here. But what if Tesla, wasn't making electric batteries? What if it was a fossil fuel company? Would we give them money? Would our government give them money to do business? And if it increases our economy, then the answer might be definitely yes. We definitely subsidize coal and oil and things like that might be harmful to our environment. Okay. So So it's tough. You want to stimulate your economy, but then the question is at what cost? So that's always going to be, those two, for a while anyway, are going to be at a battle. All right, and I think I'm almost done. There are two ways to think about how you look at our planet. There's kind of three schools of thought. I want you to think about like who comes to mind when for each of these. So if you are planetary management, you view the planet in that the planet is there for us, the human race. So it's there to meet our needs only. So it's a little more, I would say, egocentric. Stewardship means that we're the managers of this planet. Like we value, we feel responsible to protect this planet and be stewards, but we still do it so that the planet can benefit us, the human race. So we're kind of in the middle. And then you have environmental wisdom worldview. And when I think of this type of thought, this person might think that every living thing is equal. We all have a right to be here, and we all need to protect the planet in any way possible. So yeah, environmental wisdom, the stewardship, and the planetary management. And I want you to write down an example of just like who do you think of for each one of these. Okay, and then just kind of wrapping up. So in order to be sustainable, the deal is we have to live off of our natural capital, and we can't use that. Remember, that's the value of the planet. We can't use that so fast that it doesn't replenish itself in time to meet the needs of every future generation after us. That's the goal. So we have to protect that natural capital, those natural resources, then those natural services. And what's kind of cool is that you do matter. You think, oh, I'm just one person and can I really make a difference? You can. Sometimes it might mean making noise. That's possible, but it only takes 5 to 10% of a population to bring about a major social change. That's not much. That's not much. So you see people that throw out petitions with what's been going on, and you see things happening. More people get to sign, then all of a sudden your politicians will start listening to them because they want to get voted back into office. So you can bring about change. Just don't accept the way things are. You can definitely make a difference. And looking at the things that we need to focus on. Okay, I think that's it for chapter 1. Yes.